What happens?
Ooh.
I gotta type something.
Ooh, I think we're live, Aaron.
You think, or we are?
No, we are live.
Anybody watching yet? Where's I'm all confused with how to do this again. It's
Well,
been.
Well, Aaron said
I
hi
hope
up there.
Someone gave you a thumbs up, unless that was you.
No, it wasn't me.
Hey, Mike. Mike A's here. He's waiting.
Now,
What happened?
Ooh,
I gotta type something.
Yes, I think we're live, Aaron.
Now I can hear you.
Now,
You think, or we are?
No, we are live. It's all right. I've got
Anybody?
it.
I'm muted on my end.
I've got it. Mike said, Mike's here as well, so he said waiting. See, this is good now because we can start to share all the stuff that goes on and share it as people come in.
Hey, Heath.
Earth to David.
I think that's it. I'm not wearing my glasses.
Aaron said, he said, hi, Aaron. George here has said, greetings from New Jersey, where I need a solid full-frame backup body for stills for the upcoming wedding season. Can't wait for the A7 IV. I think, well, everyone's waiting for that camera, Aaron.
Yeah.
I think
everybody's been waiting since the A7 III came out.
Yeah, but I've got a feeling that's going to be something really special.
Well, if they keep doing if they did with what they did with the A7 III, yeah, it's got to have something.
Yep. I think
we can only speculate, right?
Yep. Now, how are the audio guys? Can you let us know the audio for both of us? Because this is the first time we've done it through Ecamm, and I might need to balance my audio or Aaron. So if one's higher than the other, can you let us know?
Greetings from NJ. Is that delayed, or did he already say that, Mike?
No, it's put it there now. So it's
okay.
There.
I see.
So this is the first time.
Thanks, George.
We've actually done this since months ago, Aaron, wasn't it? Like it's been a long time.
No, it's been a year, like over a year that we did this live thing. That's because of me. I've been so busy. I haven't did any YouTube. I haven't did anything. So today's the day we're back on the live thing. Now, I don't know if we're going to do this every week, but we're going to try, right, David?
Yeah, we're going to try, definitely. It just depends on, I mean, sometimes, look, it's easier for me because I just do this full time, but Aaron obviously works as well. So it's harder for Aaron than it is for me, but we're going to try and do it each week. Yes, definitely.
I love it.
Yeah. What else have we got?
I'm still trying to set things up as we talk. I don't know where to put this window.
George said, good to see you two back together again. Does this mean the pandemic is finally over? Well, at the moment it is here, but I think it's pretty bad still everywhere else, but we're pretty lucky here.
Yeah, I mean, it's still going on here, but I don't see too many, besides having to wear a mask, I don't see too many, what do you call those things, rules that you can't do stuff. Like I know in Australia, it was pretty rough. You couldn't go 10 feet from your front door and all that stuff. And so here it's not so bad, we're still good. But that's the cool thing with live. You could do it 10 feet inside your door. So
that's right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Mike said audio is good for me. So that's fantastic. Now, in the coming weeks, next 2 weeks or so, guys, you're going to see me with a hat on because I'm getting a skin cancer cut out. I've got one up here. So I was talking to Aaron about it before. It's a squamous cell carcinoma, I think they're called. But I've got it early, so I'm sure I'll be fine. But they'll have to take a big chunk out of my head, so I'll be wearing a hat because it's going to look pretty ugly for a couple of weeks, I think. So I will be wearing them. It's the joys of the Australian summer over here. So audio a bit echoey with David. Oh, I wonder why.
I hear you good.
It's probably
like room echo?
Yeah, it's probably room echo, probably.
I don't hear no room echo, especially with that mic right up to your face. I don't hear any room echo.
Yeah, that's why I've done it that way. Nice and close.
I know. Well, see, this is all I got. Where's it at? Right here. So I try to get it as close as I can to my mouth so I don't get too much room echo. So if you're hearing room echo, it might be me. However, what you guys can't see is I've got like soundproofing, whatever you want to call it, all on this side. So hopefully it sounds okay. Yeah. It's just cheap painter's cloth. It's like blue. And I got like a shaggy carpet just specifically for sound. So it works okay.
The problem in this studio is it's got a wood floor and it's pretty bare. I really should put soundproofing up, but the audio sounds good to me. So I don't know where that's coming from. Could be a YouTube thing.
Yeah, it sounds good, but my floors are tile, so it's like really echoey. But I just put like a piece of shaggy type I don't know what you call it, rug just on the ground just to help absorb sound. And it does a lot better than it did like a couple years ago.
Yeah. What have we got here? Hard to justify a camera investment right now until we learn the A7 IV specs and features. Yeah, well, look, like I said, I've got a feeling it's going to be amazing. But if you need a camera now, you need a camera now. And I discussed this yesterday in the live show there that, you know, if you do want one now and you need it for work, probably now is a good time to get one. And Aaron, the first story we're going to go through today is Aaron talking about how now he's sort of more or less switched to the A7C. So we're going to talk about that in detail.
Yes.
But like if you can wait and you're not in a hurry, I mean, it might be a good thing to wait. But I don't think we're going to see anything from Sony until my guess is around about September, October, and then it probably will be released in, say, November, and then they'll get enough Christmas sales in. Yeah, I think that's probably what's going to happen, yeah. So I'd be waiting at this stage just to see what happens and then, you know, do it sort of, if you have to, buy something now, and like I said, wait and see what Aaron has to say about the A7C. If not, wait for the A7 IV.
Yep.
So what we might do, oh look, we've got the same cup, Aaron.
Yeah.
We must be partners.
Look.
Yeah, look.
Yeah, it's been like a year and a couple months ago, me, David, and a whole bunch of people even in this chat probably later, and on David's channel and our Facebook group, and my wife and his wife and all this, we went down to Las Vegas, and we did a big photo shoot there, had some fun. So on me and my wife's way back, we bought 2 mugs, one for me and one for my good friend David, and I sent it to him. And so we got matching mugs from Vegas. Viva Las Vegas.
Should always wear a hat outside. I do, and I did, but this is from childhood. The problem is I was talking to Aaron about, and I used to get really sunburned as a kid. Being very fair, I burn in 15 minutes. And I used to get that burnt when I was a child. I used to get blistered noses and all this stuff. So now I'm suffering from it. So I always wear a hat, always when I'm outside. But the damage is done. So
yeah, that's the thing. So many people young go in the sun and they damage their skin for later in life. So
well, here now in Australia, they make them wear hats at school and everything now, like in sunscreen and stuff like that. Yeah, you can't even go out for playtime unless you have a hat on, the kids. So they're pretty strict with it here now. So, all right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to discuss Aaron, interestingly, because this is what I'm really interested to talk to him about this, because I bagged this camera when it was first released. I thought, it was a bit of a mediocre camera. This is talking about the A7C. But Aaron has been using it extensively over the last few months. So I'm going to pass it all over to him, and he's going to talk about what he thinks about the A7C. If you have any questions about it too, guys, keep posting it in, because I'll put it over on the thing, and then Aaron might be able to answer them as well. But yep, I'm leaving it over to you, Aaron, so I'll go on full screen on you.
Yeah, so the Sony A7C, you know, it's one of those things where people will keep, you know, comparing it with the Sony A7 III. Now, I did a pretty extensive review on this, so if you go to my YouTube channel, you can check out that review. It's like maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 videos back. But I've always used less than the most expensive cameras. That's kind of my thing. Even on my little logo on my YouTube channel, you'll see that, I forget what it says, something about a minimalist, because that's what I am. I like small gear, I like light gear, and I don't like a lot of gear. That kind of goes against the norm. I know people like bags and bags of gear and all this stuff to switch out. I'm a very minimalized person. I travel a lot. I probably keep my camera in my, it's on the other side, my Peak Design 5-liter bag. It's one of the smaller bags, probably like all the time. I like to just shoot all the time. I do it professionally also. I actually work 5 days a week, 6 hours a day doing jewelry photography. That became my profession actually just since the pandemic started. Just like I do that full time now. Other than that, I done weddings and magazine shoots for fashion and street photography. I do a little bit of landscape and architecture-ish type shots. You know, I don't have lenses for architecture, but I do all that stuff. And I just like having a small camera and very few lenses. And so for a long time, I was using Panasonic cameras, the rangefinder styles, and others as well, Canon and Nikon and all that, with the hump on top, of course. But I always loved the rangefinder cameras. I had the Sony A6000. I'm filming it. I'm using it right now for this live video. And I've had this camera since it came out a long time ago. And I love the rangefinder style of it. And the features that are on the Sony A7C aren't much different than the Sony A6000 as far as controls are, and the older Panasonic cameras where they don't have the front dial and all these other little things here. But using the Sony A7 III for like 3 years, I really missed the flippy screen on my Panasonic cameras. I mean, I just absolutely, I mean, I use that so much for low shots and high shots and other awkward angles for video and everything else. So I really missed that. So using the Sony A7 III, it was like really close to a perfect camera because the autofocus is amazing, the image quality is amazing. Everything about it was just really good. I didn't like the gray focus point because I always lost it, and not having a flippy screen. So the Sony A7C has basically everything that I like. It's small like the A6000-ish, you know, small-ish. It has the same kind of features as the Panasonic. It has the, you know, I could put my face on the side of the camera because of the viewfinder thing, type of camera. And it has a full frame sensor like the Sony A7 III, but it has even better autofocus, which I had no problems with the Sony A7 III. So when you think of all that in my history of using these smaller type of cameras, it really is just like the perfect camera for me. It has everything I want. Now, there are some things missing from it that you'd probably have to go watch my video because I go through those one at a time. But that's like the slow shutter of 1/4000th of a second opposed to 1/8000th of a second.
We'll post that video link in the description down below, Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll post that, and it just goes over in detail because I'm not going to sit here and remember everything. But so all the misfortunes or the missed things that it has over the Sony A7 III, it wasn't a big issue for me because for years I've used cameras with those same type of 4,000th of a second, and the shutter sync speed is 1/60th of a second, where the Sony A7 III is 2/50th. And so in that video I go through how I get around those, and they're really not getting around. It's just I take it to the limit, and then I do whatever I do to get the photo. So for instance, like if it's only 1/4000th of a second, people freak out that it's not 1/8000th of a second. That's only if you're using fast lenses out in, you know, bright daylight and you can't make the outside dark enough. Well, for me, I usually am shooting with the Tamron, which is f2.8. So that is no issue for me for the fast shutter speed. And even at f1.8, which I show in my video, that you can still acquire adequate thing. Now, if you're someone who wants to shoot at f1.8 all the time, but preferably maybe 1.4 or that new 51.2, then you're gonna, and you want to keep that f wide open and get the blurriest background you can, then of course you might start having issues. But for me, it's just not an issue because f2.8, I shoot a lot at f5.6, so not an issue. And that's really the reason why I've been using it more than the Sony A7 III, just because it's small, lightweight, and it has that flippy screen. I think that's the biggest take home that I have, is that flippy screen, because I do a lot of, I mean, I've posted photos of me, and my wife takes photos of me at weddings and everything, or I look like I'm like in fetus position on the ground looking through the EVF to get shots, and it's just so hard. Now I can easily, and we're gonna actually, if you're new to this, we actually are gonna show a photo of ours. We each show it and we share behind the scenes or behind the photo of that. And I'm gonna show you how I use a flippy screen in that photo, so stay tuned to that. But I don't know, I don't want to keep rambling on. If there's any questions, leave them here and let me know.
Alien Drone Services said about the Wi-Fi, Aaron. He said the A7 III Wi-Fi has always been a bit flaky for me. I understand the A7S III fixed that. Was wondering if the A7C has also improved Wi-Fi over the A7 III. Yeah,
that's another, see, your guys are reminding me here. That is a huge thing. When I was looking at the specifications of the Sony A7C way back when it was first announced or whatever, I was looking through the manual and all that stuff because I like to dig deep into my cameras and know what they do. And I saw something that says FTP. And I was like, I remember them talking about FTP on other cameras, more expensive cameras. And so I dug deeper, and sure enough, that they have those like, they have like the Sony, they have all the different cameras up above, and they have all these rows, and they have a check on what they do, and it's blank if they don't do it. Well, the Sony A7 III in this FTP thing didn't have a check on it, but the Sony A7C did. So I'm like, oh, it has FTP. Let me dig into that. So I dug into it, and sure enough, I did a video on how you can set up your Sony A7C, that every time you take a photo, of course, a RAW plus JPEG gets copied to the single card slot. But then also at the same time in the background, a high quality JPEG is being sent to my iPhone. So I can have my iPhone on. I did a runway model shoot, and I did that for the first time on this, where every time I took a shot, a high quality JPEG would go to this, and it's so easy to set up. Watch my video, and so it's not like they fixed the Wi-Fi, because even if you still use the image app and the Wi-Fi, it works pretty much exactly the same. It's that FTP function that is live in the background sending JPEGs. Now, if you're going to ask, does it do RAW? It does not do RAW. And I had someone try out what is that? An A1 or A92 or whatever is out now. And they said they couldn't get the RAW to work either. And I thought you could. But apparently, if anybody knows how to get RAW over, tell me. On the A7C, you can't. And I only think it's because it's a cheaper camera, so they want to save that for more expensive cameras. But from what I'm told, you can't do it on any camera. So if you want RAW...
The other thing too is it might be that, that with sharing stuff like that online through Wi-Fi, perhaps RAW files are just going to be a bit too big in some of these cameras to get over. How quick does it go from when you take the image to how quickly it shows on the phone?
Yeah, and that's a good point about RAW. That's kind of what I think. Like, if they had RAW go over, I think it would be such a slow process where then people might complain about it. They might go like, oh, this is garbage, it's too slow. And so maybe in their mind, like, let's just not even do that because we know it's going to be a bottleneck. That's probably why they do it. But check out my video. It's the FTP for the Sony A7C, but it's pretty quick. So if I were to, I show you in the video, but if you take a photo like this, click, you're waiting, boom, about 3 seconds. So it's pretty quick. And the cool thing about that is when I'm doing my jewelry photography, I was doing it that way where I have my iPad set up here and I've got my my Sony A7C, which is actually great with the flippy screen because I don't have to bend over and look at the back of the screen sideways, like my neck sideways to see, because I shoot a lot of vertical for social medias and everything else. And so with the Sony, without a flippy screen, I always had to bend down, and man, my neck was hurting. Tried that 6 hours a day. With the flippy screen now, I just have it flip up. Now I'm just like looking down at it like this, and it's just so much easier, right? So anyways, I would take a picture of the jewelry because I have to do like 30 photos to stack, and they would then Wi-Fi FTP to my my iPad, and it's so quick, it's like 3 seconds. So by the time I'm on the last 30th photo of doing that focus stack, by the time I come over here to the iPad, they're already there, and now I just open Affinity Photo on the iPad and then do all the stitching and stacking, whatever you call it, on there. So it's 3 seconds is pretty quick. The other thing is you could show a client like right away within 3 seconds. So if they have an iPad, now I did, like photo shoots for magazines where you've got the model there and the clothing, and taking a photo, I wish I would have had this when I did those, is I can have the client now or the designer or the magazine people sitting on a couch holding my iPad, and every time I take a shot, it's sent over there in 3 seconds, and they can zoom in and say, oh, hey, wait, you missed focus, or oh, wait, there's an eyelash on her cheek, or whatever they could see. So 3 seconds, not too shabby.
So if you only wanted to use a JPEG workflow, you wouldn't need to do tethering then?
No, you don't have to if you're doing JPEG only. What I've done now is because I found a way, which I have a video of this too. I actually did a lot of videos this year. So for me, I haven't did any in a year, and now I'm putting them up all the time because I try to do things that help people out. So now I use tethering with my Sony A7C with just a USB cable coming right out of the port, right into my laptop, because I got a new laptop for Christmas. So now I have a laptop I could take with me. And now, instead of using FTP, I'm using tethering only because, not because it's just quicker, it's a little faster, of course, but I've got it set up to where now, when I'm using an autofocus lens like the Sony 90mm f2.8, now I just have to focus on the very first part of the ring, and then I go to my laptop and I click this little program along with the remote app on the PC, and when I click it, it automatically focuses for me. So now I don't have to focus, click, focus, click, focus 30 times. It's just one shot. So now I do use tethering. But if you want to do JPEG, and I do JPEG only with my jewelry photography, there's no need for RAW because I've got all the lighting set up the way I want. I got it looking almost perfect out of camera. And so now I use tethering, but you could, if you don't do stacking, just, don't use tethering and just use an iPad or a phone or whatever, and you got a JPEG workflow.
Yeah, I'll have to give it a play with the A7S too. That also, Langston said, does the A7C automatically rotate during video? That's a killer feature for IG stories.
Yes, it does. And that was one of the main features that was kind of highlighted in everybody's specs, although I don't think a lot of people use that. So I did, when I was in New York, I did a vertical video for Instagram. I put it on my YouTube as well, just to see how it worked. And it worked great. The cool thing is, because I was in, I had, I forget which, I might have used the kit lens for that. But the cool thing is because I was in a, a tall skyrise type building, and there's other skyrise buildings around me, that was perfect to go from this and chopping off all the buildings to like this and seeing all the tall buildings. And the video worked perfect. So yeah, you don't have to do nothing in post. It just comes in like that. I put it in, what's it called? On the iPad, I use LumaFusion, just brought it in there, and I basically didn't even edit it and rendered it out. And yeah, so lengthen works perfect.
Just had a question here I thought we could answer. It just says to Holland Cloak Media said, I'm really debating on whether to get the FX3 or the A7S3. I'd love the high-res viewfinder on the S3, but I love the form factor of the FX3 and the ergonomics of it. It's a tough one. Look, if you want... Well, if you want the camera to be a fusion-type camera or hybrid, you really have to get the A7S3, because if you're taking photos, you definitely need the viewfinder. In fact, I use the viewfinder all the time for video as well. I mean, it's, you just need to have that ability here. The sun's very, very strong. And if I use the back screen, I can't see it. If I'm in daylight and I need to get critical focus or check the exposure's correct, you just can't see it. So I will always, even if it's on the gimbal, look through the EVF just to make sure that the exposure is correct. And if I'm doing manual focus, that the manual, the focus is correct too. So for me personally, I would not give up the EVF at all. So for me, I wouldn't buy an FX3. I would buy an A7S3. But if you're just doing videography, it's probably going to be a different scenario where you might think, well, I can get by without the EVF. It's a tough choice, but for me, definitely. Like I said, I think if I was buying another camera today, I'd still get another A7S3, but I'm going to talk about that in the next story. But Aaron, let me show you this webpage because it is beautiful what they've done with this A7S3.
Oh, yeah.
Well, look, we got a super chat. Woohoo!
Hey, look at that. Thanks. I can't read it without my glasses.
Yeah, well, let me just come back because I just wanted to show it because I like that now because I can't miss them.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Super chat, $5 from Zio. What software are you using for this live stream? Specifically interested in automatic super chat lower thirds. I'm using Ecamm Live. So that's what I'm using. I've changed from Wirecast. We used to do the previous stuff we were doing was called Streamlabs. And that was just a web-based browser, but you can only output at 720p. This now we're doing 1080p here.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and it has a lot more extra features that you can add in, like the super chats can come in automatically, like I just showed then.
Super cool.
And things like that. There's a lot of other things you can put in this too, but it's a subscription. I paid for it. Luckily, I was grandfathered in. But I'll talk to you all about this a little bit later because I've got a new channel that I'm going to go through all of this stuff about.
Yes.
So I'll put that link up and I'll discuss that a little bit later. But thank you so much for the super chat. But let me show you this. This looks beautiful, Aaron, because talking about rangefinders, how gorgeous does this look on the A7C with that leather cover? It looks, I think it looks beautiful.
It's gorgeous. And when I see, when I first saw the Sony A7C with the silver top, fell in love right away because I had a Panasonic. I always forget all the models that I had or the numbering of those, but I think it was the GX8, which was a rangefinder type camera with the silver top. And of course you have the Fujis with the silver top. And I always love those silver tops. It's just really cool. And after seeing, the silver top, and then I put a skin on mine. You guys can go check that out. It looks really cool too. And then you see the leather case. So it's really, I think they might be going after Fuji in essence because they're looking kind of Fuji-esque. And then the new prime lenses they came out now have an aperture wheel. So I think they've thought about all this because the Sony A7C doesn't have the front wheel, which it doesn't bug me. But now you have an aperture wheel. So if you're using those lenses, not necessarily you don't need a front dial if you use that as your aperture. And then I saw that, I was like, yeah, it's kind of getting like Fuji territory as far as it looks. So I just wonder if they're kind of going after the looks, or they're just saying, hey, we need to make pretty cameras. So that looks cool. Now, the only thing you'll know is the only complaint that I gave the Sony A7C, literally only one complaint, which is kind of crazy, but it's true for me, you know, everybody's different, is the grip. When I hold it, people complained about other Sony cameras like this too. My Sony 50mm 1.8, which isn't a very large lens, just where that goes small and it gets a little bit bigger, it just rubs against my knuckle just a little bit. So much so, though, that it was just leaving a little mark, like, you know, like a scab or something. I don't know what you call it, like that. And it just bugged me. So I just put a little piece of Velcro there, and it completely doesn't, I don't even know it's there anymore. You know, it just doesn't hurt or anything. So putting that leather case on there might make that even worse, because you're putting more thickness between the grip and the lens. So that's, you know, I'd like to see anybody's review on that if that's an issue they have. Now, even though I got my Tamron's over there, even though the Tamron's larger, just the way it rounds out, I never had an issue. So not every lens has it, but that grip or that leather case looks pretty, but I would be I don't know if it's going to make your finger rub anymore.
Well, it probably will. Hey, now, how do you find the EVF? What's the quality of the EVF like?
Yeah, see, now for me, I was huge. I say this in my review of the Sony A7C. That was, someone just nailed you big time. I can't read it. Randall. Thanks, Randall.
Wow, Randall. $50 from Randall.
Yeah.
Hello, David.
All this goes to David, by the way, but I'm saying thanks because, you know, he needs it. He needs to buy a hat for next week.
Yeah, I do. The super chat, $50 from Randall. Thank you so much, Randall. Hello, David and Aaron from San Antonio, Texas. Wow, that's amazing.
Cool,
Thank
Randall.
you so much, buddy. Yeah, now keep going with the what you were saying about the viewfinder.
So the viewfinder is, I'm huge on viewfinders. Like when I was filming, because I started, as a lot of people probably don't know who I am and what I do, but I started in photography a long time ago, but professionally stuff, I did video. And when I got the Canon cameras, like the T2i, then the 7D and the 5D Mark, I don't remember. We did it for a TV show. I never owned that camera, but I used it for like a year filming a TV show. And I got one of those, I forget the brand now. It was the name brand LCD loop on the back. It's like this big piece with the big
yes, I've got one of those. Yeah.
What's the name of that company that was big back
Loop
then?
Deck, isn't it? No, not Loop Deck. It's
it was most of what you see now is knockoffs of that one.
Yeah.
You know? I can't remember now. Anyways, someone could put it in the chat. I still got it. Do I got it here? And I've got it there. I forget what. No, it's not that. But anyways, I needed an EVF. I want to be in the camera so I can see focus and all that stuff, right? Like David was just saying, he wants to know, he wants to see it, right? So I was big on that. And when all the other cameras came out, when I got Panasonic, I always got the extra big rubber cup for the EVF. So I am someone that's big on the EVF. However, I found now, if I'm doing video, I still probably want to do that. It's if in the sun. But for photography on the Sony A7C, the focus is just so perfect. I mean, in my video, I even said it's perfect. I mean, I haven't noticed any misses yet on autofocus. Yep. And I'm sitting there, if you watch a video, shooting a runway shoot, holding the camera up like this with the flippy screen, completely relying on autofocus because I've already knew that it was so good and I was taking a lot of shots. They all nailed. So I don't use the EVF all as much as I used to, and I would always use the EVF, but it's because I can see the back of the screen. I even need glasses now to read stuff and everything. So, but I can hold the camera out in front of me and see the composition. You know, I'm not blind. You know, I can see it, and the autofocus is so good that I just nail it. I was always using EVF before just to get critical focus. So that little EVF doesn't bug me because I'm kind of holding it out like this. But even though I kind of sometimes want to be discreet when I'm taking photos, I don't want to be holding it out here. It doesn't bug me at all. I would say if you had any of the Sony A6000 series, maybe the newer ones got better. It's similar to that. I mean, I got the A6000 here and the Sony A7 III there, and it feels the same. So for me, it just doesn't bug me. So EVF is fine. It does what it does.
I can understand what you're saying. The thing with like what's happening with me now with the A7S III is that the EVF is just so good, I can't stop using it. You've got no idea.
And stuff.
Yeah, you've got no idea until you look through that EVF how beautiful the results are. I did some photos when I was at Echuca the other day of the grandkids, and I look through the EVF and then you realize how bad the LCDs on the back of the screen are, because you look at the back of the screen and you go, oh, yeah, but then you look through the EVF and you just go, wow. Like, it's literally like you're looking at natural life. It's just, there's nothing like it. It is one, like I said, anyone that has an A1 or an A7S3 will know exactly what I'm talking about. It is stunning. And hopefully the A7 IV will have that as well. But like I said, I just can't put it down because of that. So.
Yeah, and that's why the other thing is, like, for me using an EVF, I still use it to check my photos. You know, not before it was always for that critical focus. Now it's not that at all. If the Sony A7C didn't have a viewfinder, I wouldn't get it, because I still, even though I'm shooting more out like this, which I never used to do, and the autofocus is nailing everything I throw at it. If it didn't have an EVF, it still would be I wouldn't get it, because outside, I still want to make sure the hair didn't go in front of the face, or the eyes were closed, or something's wrong. You know what I mean? So I'm still using the EVF, but it just doesn't bug me. But yeah, going from the Panasonic G9 to the Sony A7 III, I was like, oh, wow, that doesn't look that great. But you don't need, I don't think, a beautiful viewfinder to get the job done, but it is very nice to use, as David has pointed out.
So Roxatham, I can't pronounce it. He said, the back of the screen is why I still use Canon for photography. Yeah, the Sony screens suck. Let's face it. They really do suck on the back of the Sonys. The A7S III is such a tease. Like I said, until you look through that viewfinder, you've got no idea. Yeah. It is. Every time I turn it on and look through it and you look at the image, you just go, oh my God, like it is incredible. It really is. I've heard people say it's like looking through a window. It is. It's like looking through a window with all the digital stuff actually poked through. It's unbelievable. But yeah, cool. I really always look through the EVF to check focus as well. So Aaron, looking at this, do you think if they brought out, say, an A7 IV with extra features that you'd be tempted, or do you think the A7C is all you really need?
Yeah, A7 III is all I need. I didn't say this in any videos, but what would it take for me to upgrade from this point on? Well, everything that's in the Sony A7C does my job perfectly. I mean, for what I do, it does it. I mean, I don't see what I would need. Now, we always see, they always come out with some new technology that makes our life easier, and I'm all for going for technology to make my life easier. I mean, the autofocus on this thing is ridiculous, and it makes my life easier. I don't even, like I said, I don't have to get critical focus anymore with my eye. It does it. So for me, it would have to be something really spectacular, like we're talking about, like going completely electronic camera, no more mechanical shutter. And I think that's what I don't know if they'll do that on that. I really doubt it. But I think the Sony A7C Mark II, because they already have a half a shutter where it's just one shutter curtain. It's like electronic front curtain, always on type thing. So there's already one shutter curtain in this A7C. So I think they might, and then the A1 came out that does electronic stuff with flash and stuff, pretty darn good. So I think Sony A7C Mark II will come out fully electronic, and you'll be able to use flash with that, which means they could take out the mechanism completely, making the camera, even if it's just millimeters smaller, so they have bragging rights. So I think that's where it's going. So for me, it would have to be something like that, where it's fully electronic now, but still with no banding and rolling shutter issues, and you can use flash. So for me, something like that would be pretty darn good. I don't know if it's a necessity though, but I think something like that would get me to go. I always wanted to get rid of rolling shutter and video and all that. So that, other than that, what technology do you see, David, that is a complete game changer? Not more megapixels and a little bit faster. I mean, autofocus, it's so perfect. I don't need. So I don't think I'll be upgrading anytime soon. I just don't see, unless there's a technology they're hiding from us, like, oh my gosh, this new technology, you just throw the camera in the air and it takes the photo for you. That I'm like, okay, have to have. But do you see anything, David, that could come out that's just completely like, wow, like autofocus was wow, Yeah.
Well, I think now the focus, like you said, is so good on these latest cameras. The C, the A7S III, the A9s and the A1s are now, it's just ridiculous to the point now where if they say it improves it, well, I don't think you'd ever notice a difference really anymore. Like it is, I don't get stuff that's out of focus on the cameras now. Like you just don't even have to worry about it. In fact, I use center point and then I just have it on tracking. So all I do is I put the center point on whatever I want to track, and then I can just move the camera around and then just shoot when when I want to. And Kerry, I've only just started getting Kerry doing that in the weddings, and she's gone to me, oh my God, this is amazing. Because she always used to have trouble about knowing where to move things or use the hand. The easiest way I've found is just to use center focus with tracking on, and then you just let the tracking, because it's that good, the tracking on these cameras, that you just let it track the subject and then just shoot away. The only thing really with the A7C I think could be improved is I still think it'd be better if it had 2 cards in there. Yeah. But perhaps having an internal, the only thing I think with the future maybe they might put internal SSDs in these things, which would be terrific. That could be the second card or something. So, you'd have very quick downloads and all this sort of stuff. And I think you're right. A full electronic shutter is the way of the future, I think, where you get rid of that mechanical shutter. I mean, we all know the A7 III is having issues with shutters. I mean, in fact, there's going to be a lawsuit coming out against Sony about it. So there's obviously issues with some of those shutters. So if you could get rid of that, there's no wear and tear. Like I use the A9 in silent shutter all the time unless I'm using flash. And if you have the A1, you don't even need to use it for flash either. So I'd never be using the mechanical shutter. So I think that's probably the only thing for me would be really like groundbreaking would be just to get rid of the mechanical shutter completely. And like I said, internal SSDs would be terrific.
Well, yeah, you bring up a good point. I think that Sony A7C is kind of that next step because they want something small that's got one curtain in there, and they got the A1 that has good electronic, all this stuff. So I think I don't know if the A7R4 will have this or whatever, A7 IV. Is that what it's called? A7 IV? Yeah.
Yep.
I think the A7C, if Mark II has no shutter anymore and has internal SSD with an external 1 card slot, because now you have basically 2, you got the internal one and that, something like that, that might make me want to upgrade. But if it's just improving the technology now, I seriously don't need it. Now, you talked about the autofocus. I remember with the Sony A7 III doing a wedding, and the bride and groom was, sitting there, and I was kind of behind the preacher there taking photos, and they had I think it was the best man or someone over here, and with autofocus, it kept focusing on him. And I know there's some settings you can get where you have the center point and it only searches around that, but it was a little iffy. But with the Sony A7C, and like you said, the Sony A7 III, how I do it is if I'm photographing someone, autofocus is almost darn perfect. But if it keeps grabbing someone else, I can just touch the screen on the back, and that gives me the single point like you do. And then I just put that on whoever I want and hold down a button. I show this in my A7C review, and now I can just compose anywhere, and it's always focusing there. So yeah, I can't see too much improvements on autofocus unless there's something new coming. So
it's interesting, this question though, because they said, oh, I have one, love it. I think that's the A7C. I just wanted to take my R5 LCD and put it, oh, he's talking about the A7S III, and put it on my A7S III. I'm slowly moving over. One other thing is the raw transfer on iOS Apple device wireless. Now, well, we can't do raw. I do a quick turnaround on iPad. Yeah, the thing is, look, like I said, I keep going on about this all the time, that their screens really suck.
Yeah.
Let me see what else we've got here.
I don't think upgrading a screen would get me to move forward, but they just need to do that on all their newer cameras. So because it's just like, hello, it's like, I don't need the touchscreen menu like a lot of people would like or need it. Could be helpful, but they really need to push forward. And I was going to say something about what he said. I don't remember.
Oh, that's all right. Holland said, my main focus is video, but I still do a lot of photography, so 12 megapixels is perfect. I'm going to talk about that really soon, actually. So stay tuned for that. Axeman is here, just said, is it really that much smaller, for example, on an A7S III? It's the same size as an A6 100. You talk about the A7C. What is the size like, Aaron, compared to, say, the A7 III?
Well, when it was first announced a while ago, me and David talked about it, and I kind of poo-pooed the idea, like, it's not that much smaller. However, watch my review, Aaron J. Anderson on YouTube. We'll put a link in the description of my Sony A7C review. I go through all that stuff. Like, I think it's like 40-minute long review. So grab some popcorn. when you take that hump off and you take that the EVF that sticks out the back, it makes the camera a lot smaller if you are using smaller bags and like to pull it in and out while you're traveling. I'm tied up with my mic, my ear thing, but I use a Peak Design 5 liter, which is one of their older models. Now they have the 6 and the 3, but those one's a little too big and one's too small. The 5 liter for me still, it's a small bag, and pulling it in and out of that bag without that hump and without that eye cup in the bag, it makes a huge difference. And I say in my video, when I have the Tamron 28 to 75 f2.8 lens on my Sony A7C, and I put it down in the bag. Before, I couldn't put anything in the top pocket because it wouldn't zip because of the little bit of extra size. So if you're like me and you like small bags, it makes a huge difference, believe it or not. If you already have big bags and all this stuff, it probably won't make a difference to you.
G'day, Carol. She's in the chat too.
Hey, Carol.
Next week, Aaron, in next week's show, I'd like to, because we won't have time today, but I'd like to talk about what lenses you like using on that computer, on that camera as well, because I think that's going to be an interesting thing as well, because like I said, we won't discuss it now, but you've got some interesting topics about the kit lens and other things that you're using. So we'll make that as a thing next week.
Before we went live, I actually was recording the kit lens review. So maybe I'm going to edit that tomorrow, and it might be up before the weekend.
Oh, that'd be good. So Langston said internal storage is my vote to you. I think it's probably only a matter of time before we do get that. That's for sure. The Sigma FP and FPL don't have the mechanical shutter, but they can do only flash sync at 1/30th of a second instead of the more common 1/250th. Yeah.
Oh, so
that's not enough.
You can use flash with those cameras?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Cool.
Yep. Internal storage, put the camera on automatic repair schedule is the main problem. SSDs eventually go out. SD cards have a slot, but the memory chip is part of the service is more expensive. I think though, Langston, the amount of times that you can write to it, you're probably talking about enough time where the camera.
The life of the camera?
Yeah, the life of the camera. Like I don't think it'd be an issue as long as they put a big enough SSD in there. I think it would be probably okay. Langston said, which is why I think we might see more SD like the Sony card being used.
Couldn't they make? I thought of an idea of making an SD card. Couldn't a manufacturer make an SD card that is basically 2 SD cards in one, just back-to-back chips? Maybe they have to make the SD card slot just a little bigger. You put it in there, it kind of reads like that. I don't know if that's even a thing.
I don't see why they couldn't.
So if one side failed, you still got the other side, and it works the same. You just maybe flip it around to put it in something. That might be a technology someday. But internal, I think, is good. And like David said, I think it would probably last as long as the camera would. Maybe it's replaceable or something. I don't know.
Well, that'd almost be like a RAID system in the camera, which would be pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Nivak also said, this is interesting, that I've gotten in the habit of using silent shooting in the A7R4. Is there any reason I should go back to the regular mechanical shooting? Well, look, no, it won't affect focus, but the issue is that you might get rolling shutter. If you've got people moving or objects that are moving on the A7R4, you can get rolling shutter. So that's something you've got to think about. The A9 and the A1 really are the only two cameras where you don't get really any rolling shutter at all. So that's something you've got to consider. But also you have got the potential, because that readout is not fast enough, that you could get banding on the A7R4. If you're in the wrong light and you're shooting a wedding or something like that, you might think the images look fine. You get home and then you've got banding all through the image. So When I do my jewelry photography, I just use electronic shutter because the lights I use, they don't cause banding or flickering. So I'm taking I don't know how many photos I take just in one day, like a lot. So in order, what I don't want to, what do you call it? The shutter mechanism. I don't want to ruin it or run it out or whatever. I know it has like tons of life, but for me, I can easily shoot it in electronic shutter because there's nothing moving. And I know my lighting and stuff like that, so it's good for that. When you're outside in daylight, this has only 4,000th of a second. So if you want to get your shutter speed higher to get it darker, you can use electronic shutter. If you're shooting a model that's just standing there and they're not running around like kids or a dog or something, you can definitely do electronic shutter. The sun is not going to make any flickering or banding, so you can use it. You just got to be really careful
when to use it. Like David said, I would never use it for an event because you never know when that lighting's changing or someone's running and you want to capture something. So yeah.
There's also a hit on dynamic range as well. So that's another thing that you've got to consider. It's slightly worse than using the mechanical shutter. I think the A1 is the only camera that is basically absolutely identical. Well, this too, the problem with the touch screen, Randall has said, is that it's having a big nose. Yes, Randall, that can be an issue, but what you have to do is you've got to use the touch screen and separate it off so that you only just use one corner. And that's how you get around with your nose touching that screen.
That's why I like rangefinders, because when you put a rangefinder type camera with the EVF on the corner, my nose is on the side of the camera. So that's one thing I like, because I always hated that too. So much so that even if I'm not using the touch screen, when I use the standard hump on the front, I would always, if my nose isn't the smallest, so when I'm putting it up there, it's touching the lens. So I would always turn my face and make my eye go to the right, and that would actually hurt my eyeball throughout like a long wedding. And I found myself doing it too much. I'm like, oh, I got to center my face. So it's just a weird thing for me. So having that rangefinder on a Sony A7C where it's on the side, it's just like perfect. This eye can see everything, and my nose is off. So.
Also, what first full frame lens would you recommend on buying? Well, we're going to talk about lenses next week, so stay tuned for that. We just can't keep going because we're going to have to go on to another thing.
Should we go to the next story?
50 minutes. So let's get on to the next story. It won't be that long. I just wanted to talk to you about, this. Let me just show this for a second, the browser, because on YouTube, Chris, I can't pronounce his second name, whether it's Hoy or How or something, I'm not sure, but he did a whole video that showed going through print sizes. Let me just check some of these print sizes. Like some of them were massive. Let me just come up to here. So what they did, that's his wife, I think, and there was another guy that they were using as well, but they were doing these massive print size. They went from sort of going for average size prints up to really massive size prints. And they basically, in the end, they couldn't tell the difference. In fact, most of the time, they chose the A7S3 as the print that they liked more. Now, there was a video put up this morning, and I can't remember who it was, but I did watch it. It was another guy sort of disputing this, saying he thinks that they were being Sony shills and they were paid to do this this review and be biased about it. But I've got a different opinion about what he was trying to say, the other guy. If I can find it, I'll stick it in the notes below. But what I've found, that this other guy that did this review this morning, he was sort of saying that if you blow up the image, then it degrades very, very quickly. And he was sort of showing that. Now, I've said that all along. If you don't crop in camera, you'll notice a massive difference between something like an A7S3 than even, say, an A7 III with the 24 megapixels, or definitely if you have an A7R4. So there's huge differences if you're dealing with these larger file sizes if you crop. Now, I've used the 12 megapixel camera extensively shooting weddings, and they were 12 megapixel cameras because the Nikon high-end cameras were 12 megapixels when I did it. And I printed off massive files off that, and the images looked absolutely stunning, to the point where I can guarantee you that if you had two images side by side and you ask someone that, I should do it, I should actually do some prints and go out to the shopping center and say, which do you prefer? And that way it could be a totally unbiased test. But that's what they were meant to be doing here. And they had Peter McKinnon was in there, and like I said, three other people, all were picking images, and a lot of them were saying that the A7S III was the better image out of the two. Because I think people just get obsessed with resolution, Aaron. The thing is that unless, like I said, if you're cropping in camera, if you're doing wildlife where you need to crop in camera and you need that range to be able to do that, yes, it's a massive difference, But if you're like me and you're like Aaron, the way we shoot, we crop in camera. So what you see, I very rarely crop an image. Very rarely. I might crop it 5% or something, but I will always take a little bit longer and make sure that I don't have to crop it in post, because guess what? In a wedding, if you're doing 1,000 images, that takes a lot of time to start cropping things down. So I like to have remember too, if you crop, it also affects the way the image looks. It affects your sort of focal range, like your depth of field changes. You don't get the same result if you're shooting with an 85mm camera and you get that bokeh beautiful in the background, but it won't look the same if you say crop it in over like really zoom it in. So it's based really on how you see it in camera. So it's important for me to crop in exactly as I see it in the camera. If you do that, you could go up to 20 by 30 or even larger without any issue at all. And if you use something like Gigapixel, which is probably better than the Photoshop resampling, you can go up to a massive size. I could probably get 40 by 60 without a problem at all, and no one would ever notice the difference. So I think that if you're not cropping, if you shoot like me, if you shoot like Aron does, 12 megapixels is ample. And remember, I very rarely print now. It's a horrible thing that's happening now, but I very rarely print. The only thing really that I print off now really are wedding albums, and 12 megapixels is way more than I would ever need for wedding albums. 90% of the stuff that I do, dance shoots, all these other things are for social media, and 12 megapixels is absolutely way more than you would ever need for that. But I think at this stage, and I've used it extensively now. I'm using now the A7S3 as my main wedding camera, which is really interesting. I can't put it down. And my A9 is basically my second camera that I'm using. I'm finding that the processing time is so much better. There's less file storage that I need to keep on my hard drive, so I can go through when I'm using Photo Mechanic and just get through things really, really quickly and not have to worry about having these massive files coming in. I just save time all over the place. I don't need a higher res camera. Like I said, if I was buying another camera now, I wouldn't buy the A1. I'd buy another A7S3. I love it that much. That the colors are gorgeous. The files are unbelievable. The screen is decent that's out there. But the EVF is to die for. I just think it's megapixels. I know people are straight away going to say, I need the megapixels. Well, you know if you need it or not, but I don't. What do you have to say, Aron, about what I was just going through?
Well, yeah, we've talked about, megapixels before, and you know how I feel about it. I've shot billboards, I've shot magazines, I've shot all sorts of stuff that you would think you would need a lot of megapixels for, and that was with Panasonic 16 megapixel cameras. Before that, I had Nikon cameras, which was like 12 megapixels. I wasn't doing it pro then, I wasn't printing, but looking at the photos back then, I didn't, like when I look at photos now and the way they're meant to be seen, not zooming in to 200%, no one notices. And it's so funny that it's even like a talking point, because I think the manufacturers keep, they've been years calling it the megapixel race. They keep going up. Of course, they get new technology. They want to keep, getting things better and better. But because the new cameras that keep coming out with more megapixels, it's getting everybody to think like, ooh, I need the best new thing that has the most resolution. But everything you said is how I feel as well. I don't crop. I'm not I don't go out and take photos of birds and stuff to where, you've got a 400 millimeter lens, which is already huge, and you still need to get closer to a small bird. Then naturally, you're going to be cropping a lot. So you can crop 4 times and still be at a high megapixel. So for me, yeah, megapixels really isn't an issue. Like on the Sony A7C, I actually put the camera in it allows you to go in the 4:3 aspect ratio, which I talk. Oh, I'm going to put my link to my my review right here. So if you want to check out my Sony A7C review, I just put the link in the chat thing there. I go over that. It's a 4:3 aspect ratio, which was like my old Panasonic cameras, which I just love. And that's basically cutting off a little bar from the 3x2, which is giving me like 20 megapixels. And 20 megapixels is huge. When I do like photos for magazines, a magazine is only so big. And having 24 megapixels is like 4 times like the size of a magazine. And you're squishing it down. So you just don't need all the megapixels unless you're cropping a lot. And I'm like you. When I look in the back of my camera, I'm doing my compositional artistic thing, so I'm looking around and I'm seeing stuff. If you want to shoot wider than usual and then cropping later, I don't understand the idea, because what if you have like the Empire State Building framed in your shot and you're used to cropping. Now you're going to cut it off. So I'm going to go back and just get it right in camera. So it's a whole different mindset, I guess, from some people that just shoot wide with a lot of megapixels. And I don't think anybody does. A lot of people do that anyway. Just like
no, I don't.
Put a 24 megapixel and just like, let me just go way back here and get it wide to crop later. I don't even think a lot of people do that. So I don't know if that's even a thing. I might, you know, like you say, you get the horizon level.
Yeah.
Now there's one photo that I do purposely shoot wide and crop, and that is the jewelry type of shot where a model, I just did this with my wife, where she's wearing necklaces and rings and an earring, and she's doing a pose like this, you know, and it's hard to get that compositional thing you want in there because I don't want all of her eyes or her hair or whatever. Maybe I only want one eye or maybe just the lips or that's really hard to get everything in focus and the composition that you want, where those are the only, and when you step back and you stop down, you get more in focus. So by stepping back and getting a wider shot with a little bit of a wider lens, let's say, more is in focus, and then I'll crop it, you know, probably an awkward crop. It's probably not like when you lock it and it just all goes together. I, you know, crop it how I want, and you could print that out for magazines for sidebars and stuff. So that's the only time I ever crop or shoot for crop and post. Everything else, don't need it. Yeah, the megapixel race is just, it's always been one of those weird things for me.
Well, it's like I said, if you've got an 85 mil on and then you come up close to your subject, so you just wanted to do, say, a head and a shoulders, and then you get the beautiful background blur falling off, you see that in the camera, you'll get that result. But if you're step back and doing it with a different lens or even the same lens, but step right back and you crop it in, it won't look the same. The background compression and everything changes. The bokeh will change, everything changes. So this is why I encourage people to get it right in camera. Like I said, some people can't. Like if you're doing wildlife, you naturally may have to do that. You know, if you're photographing birds, you may have to do that. Also, perhaps landscape images, probably you need more resolution, and also if you're doing architecture. But for what I do, which is like events, portraits, and everything else, it's ample for me. Even landscape for me, the A7S3 looks gorgeous. I mean, it looks beautiful for the images that I get. So, you know, I'm just not interested in getting a high megapixel camera. I don't want to have the things bogging my computer down. I don't want to have the storage problems, and I want to be able to edit as quickly as possible. And I just don't need it. Now, landscapes, I think it's a very niche photographer out there that I forget his name. We did a show on him, but he takes photos with a Hasselblad. So I don't know how many, that's 100 megapixels or whatever it is, and he prints those out super large and puts them in a gallery where you can literally walk up to them. I mean, you could touch them if you want. And for people like that, that's an impressive thing to have, because you can walk up, see this horse sitting there, and look way in the back. Look at the barn back there. You can see the other horses way back. So for those type of people, that's really cool. But for the far majority of people, even landscape photographers, I mean, unless you're blowing up and getting close to that thing, because there's a thing called viewing distance. When I did 16 megapixels on a billboard, it's a huge blow up, of course. But because of the distance you are from that billboard, I couldn't tell my 16 megapixel billboard compared to any of the other billboards, which was probably done with Canons and other high megapixel. I'm just guessing. I couldn't tell the difference. So I don't think you need them. Now, David, let me share my screen, because I got an example to show with the compression that you were just talking about. I did this a while ago. Can I share? Yep.
Let's see if I can do this and share. Okay, can you see it?
Yes, there it is. So I just got to.
Can you see my pointer as well?
I'll have a look in a second. I think so. Let me just see. How do I add this in again? Let me go full screen. Let me see here. I think I just added. There we go. Yeah, I can't see your pointer, Aaron.
Okay, so I did this.
Let me just hide this. Let me get that thing off the drone. Which was that one? I'll just click on something and then hide it. Yep. Okay.
Okay, so what I did here, this was a while ago, because I wanted to see what APS-C crop mode looks like and all that, and how it affects stuff. So this, I put right here, wow, the 50 millimeter super crop mode looks just as sharp as the 85. So this is kind of a sharpness thing, but we can also see what,
another donation.
How
Thank you so much, Long Rider. Sorry, Aaron.
No, it's okay. Thanks, Long Rider. If you look on the left, that's the Sony 85 millimeter f1.8. And I focused on the battery. And then the one on the far right is the Sony 50 millimeter f1.8. and I focused on the battery. So you can see the big difference on the left and the right photos. Yeah, because you're zoomed in, it's 85 millimeter, opposed to 50. And what are you noticing in the middle is the Sony 50 millimeter using super 35 millimeter mode crop. So I just turned that on in camera, and you can see that it's like 75 millimeters. I think that's the math. I don't know why they look a little different here. I can't remember, but you can clearly see the difference in what you're getting here when you crop. For one, you're not getting a bigger bokeh ball, which you could see on the 85 if you just would have used the 85. And you can see that the blur did not change. You're not getting a blurrier background. And the compression also is very different, where you could see the center line of, that's just like the corner of my wall, where over here it's much more to the left. And that's what David was talking about, where if you're just going to take a 50 millimeter like on the right and then just crop in post, I mean, the composition is completely different. So in camera, I would rather, well, you could put it on 35, but I would rather get zoom properly and crop it in camera like the 85 and just bypass all this, what am I going to get later? So using a composition in camera is going to definitely give you the result that you're looking for, because it's going to be different if you crop later. Even though this was in camera, it's kind of what you're going to go for when you're doing it.
Well, that 50 mil that you showed, no matter how much you crop that, it wouldn't have made, it'll still look the same. The out of focus depth of field here and everything is still going to look the same as you see it. Yeah. Yeah.
So what if you're cropping later and you were thinking you were getting, you can't tell what the blur is, and you crop it, it's not the same as getting it right in camera, whether it's compression, whether it's blur, or even the bokeh balls are different. So getting it right in camera is going to give you can I unshare this? Am I still sharing?
Done. Yep, it's done.
Oh, it's done. Yep. So getting it right in camera for like me and David is really the way to go, because that's what the photo is going to look like. Cropping later, it's going to look a little different.
Oh, Long Ride also said the dynamic duo is back together again.
Yeah, we're back after a year and a couple months.
So let me just show you quickly some images I've taken with the A7S III, and then Aaron will show his
this,
photo.
Are we sharing our photo?
Yeah. So where did I put this?
I'll bring mine up for later.
In here, actually. Is it there? JPEG, yeah. All right, so let me just see. I think I'm just going to have to share mine differently than Aaron, but let me just see if this works.
We see your full desktop.
Open. Yeah, I've got to work out yet still how to do it, but
oh, that's such a cute photo. I love that.
So this is one that I took just recently. You'll see Aaron's a little better because he can share the actual screen. I probably can too, but I've just got to work out how to do it on my side. But these were all taken with the A7S III. Now this is a perfect example. Like this was shot with the 85. Now notice how the background is all out of focus. If I shot further back and cropped in, that background would look totally different. It wouldn't have that depth of field. So that's, and also everything changes. So that's the first image that I'll show you. Let me show you a couple from here. This was obviously one that I did as well, which was a wedding shoot. It was an engagement shoot that I did. Again, detail everywhere. I mean, like I said, you know, it's not losing detail or missing detail. Let me open up another one. Open. This was another one that I took as well at the same location. Overpowering the sun was taken with the A7S III. And this one I've shown before, but I'll show you in here. That was shot as well, heavily backlit. So I wanted to try that. And the last one that two more. Let me just show this one. This was shot, this was daylight actually, and this is editing. So I did do this in editing to make it look like it was dark. I knew exactly what I wanted and I exposed for that. So this was done in daylight, but that was another one with the A7S III. And then this one was done in last week's wedding. Where I shot that inside this barn. I'm doing another wedding there in another week or so. So that's going to be there as well. Now, these were all shot with the A7S III. Like I said, and I could go up to 20 by 30 without an issue at all, and much, much larger if I take it through another program. Now, why have you disappeared there, Aaron? I probably haven't added you. I don't know. I know it's a different thing, that's why. So did you want to share your images, Aaron?
Yeah, and I will tell people too, is me and David both had A7R3s, which are 42 megapixels. And I thought because I never had a megapixel that much, and I was like kind of wowed by the idea that I could take photos and crop in later and do things, but I just kept doing what I always do, and I get it right. When we say crop in camera, we're basically talking about getting it right in camera, moving our feet and getting it composed properly, that I just never even used that. And here I am having all these huge files that take forever.
Yeah.
And where am I putting these? Now, I think a lot of people get a wow factor when they get a camera like that and they crop all the way in and pose like, oh my gosh, look, I can see my reflection in her eyeball from way out here, But then in the end, you render it out as a JPEG anyways, and where does it go? Does it go somewhere huge? No, it's always small print, if any, or social media or internet. So yeah, we don't need that. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Let's share application, and can you see it?
Yep, let me just switch to you first, and then yep, it's on there now.
So this was a photo we just took in Miami, just like it might have been a month ago now. Thanks. And I just wanted to show, with everything we're talking about, well, for one, this is 20 megapixels. Can you guys tell? No, because we're watching it on YouTube, and if I put it on any social media, you're not seeing the 20 megapixels anyways. You're probably seeing like, what, 4 or 5 megapixels or something like that. So anyways, what we're showing here is, because this is the Sony A7C, and if you see the bottom here, you see this little like brown thing here. She's standing on the curb, and I actually use the flippy screen a lot in low shots, and this really shows off how I use that. And because I had a flippy screen, I was able to dip the camera below a curb. That's a normal size curb. So my camera is like literally probably resting on my shoe or somewhere close to it. And with that flippy screen, I didn't have to get in any awkward position. I didn't have to shoot wide and hope I got the shot and crop it later. I mean, I was just looking comfortably down at the flippy screen in a vertical mode position, and it was dipped below the curb, and I was able to get the very tippy top of this building here with the kit lens at 28 millimeters, and flippy screen worked out perfect. I probably shot this wide open at f4 because the distance and all that, it's going to get pretty much everything in focus that I want, and that's kind of the idea.
If you didn't have the flip out screen here, you'd be lying on the ground trying to look through the screen.
Yeah, and because I was pretty close to my wife here, and at the angle of the camera, I might not even, there's no way I could even seen the back of the screen because it would have just been facing the cement, without using the flippy screen. So in order to get a shot like this, I would have to literally just pray and spray, basically. I would shoot wide and shoot and come back up and look through the EVF or the back of the screen. But it was so sunny, I actually used the EVF to look at it just to make sure her hair and everything. But if I wasn't on a flippy screen, I would say, oh, wait, stand there again. I cut the building off, or I cut your foot off. I would have to retake it over and over. But the flippy screen, I knew exactly, comfortably, knowing what shot I'm getting. And I got this. And when I use when I use 28 millimeters or 24 millimeters, I typically am shooting at f4, f5.6, maybe even f8, because I like these types of shots where her feet's not blurry, neither is the top of her head. If I focused on her face, then her feet might have been blurry, and all those types of things. So for me, that's how I shoot those wide angle lenses, and I think
that's beautiful. I love the color. So you're matching the colors again as usual.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the thing. Am I back on? Because I stopped sharing.
Back on. Oh, hang on. It's me. Yeah. So let me switch back over to both of us.
He just mentioned about the colors. And one of the things me and my wife do is we usually scope out locations when we go to Europe or travel of the area, like what's their color motif. And then my wife will get clothing for that color motif, and we do photo shoots like this. But in this shot, we were just walking around, and we saw the very tip of that building from like 3 blocks away, just peeking over trees and other buildings, like, oh, look, it has blue in it, like your dress. So we went and searched for it, and we walked around, and we found it, like, oh, cool. And there's a lot of people walking around, so it was really hard to get this shot, which makes the flippy screen good too, because going low with the camera, so my camera's down like this, but really low, and I'm sitting there like this, and once I locked in the composition that I wanted, I'm resting it against my shoe, so my hands aren't floating, right? So I locked in the composition, and I'm just squatting, normal. You can't see that in here, but very comfortably like this. And once I got the composition, because it's resting against my leg and my foot, it's locked in. My hands aren't free floating, right? And now I can look at my wife, and I can say, okay, look off that way, it'll fix your hair. Now my camera's already composed properly, and there's people walking behind her as I'm looking at her hair, and I'm like, move it, do this, do that. And now I don't even have to look at my camera because the autofocus is good. I already dialed in the composition with the flippy screen. And right when she looked great and the people stopped moving, I go, okay, stay right there, click, 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 click. I'm just firing. Composition's done. Autofocus is nailed. And we got a great shot.
So what do you think, because Rox the man here said, what settings did you use? Do you remember? So it was the A7C. What lens was it?
I actually I saved it in case. Let me put my glasses. Well, let me see if I can zoom in here. I actually saved the metadata for you guys. So this was the 28 to 60 millimeter kit lens, and I shot this at 28 millimeters, ISO 100 at f4 and at 5,000th of a second. Did I say that too quick? If you didn't catch that, I can repeat.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, so that's how I got the shot.
I love 95 here. G'day, mate. He said, I hate the screen. That's it, though. I love a long ride. That's why I laughed when you were talking, Aaron, because I read Long Rider's thing. 2 old guys complaining about bending over. I need a flippy screen.
Oh, no. Yeah, that is funny. I'm actually very healthy.
Aaron's just disappeared. That doesn't matter, Aaron. You can keep talking because we're going to sign off anyway.
Can you hear me?
I think Aaron's battery's just died.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello? Oh, you can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I'm filming on the Sony A6000, so the battery dies, but I'm still, that's why I hooked the audio up to my laptop and not the camera, so I could still talk. So if you guys have any questions about anything, leave in the comment. And about the bending over, it's funny because when you do get older, it does help. But
it does.
Like in this shot, I couldn't even see the back of the screen, so it helps for those things too.
George said,
so I'll stick here.
Lots of helpful info on tonight's show. Please don't make us wait another year for the next episode. No, we're hoping to do it if we can each week.
I know.
What did that say? How did Henry Cartier-Bresson do without a flippy screen? Oh, the horror. I love it. I know. We're just old. So thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. It's been really great. If you could share, give a thumbs up, and obviously share it if you can, because it does help. Indeed. Both Aaron and myself are unsponsored channels, so it does make a big difference. Group. Now, I also have another YouTube site that I've got up and running. I'll leave the link below where you can see that, but I'll just quickly show it just so that you can see what it is. It's this page here. So it's called All Things Apple and Live Streaming. So I'll leave the link down below in here too. I'd love it if you could follow me. It's really tough to get to 1,000 subscribers and the watch hours before you can monetize it. So this is going to be a different channel than my normal channel. This is going to be more on Apple products and also showing how to live stream and live streaming setups and hardware and software that you use as well. So I'm really excited about this, Aaron. So if you can, I'd love it if you could subscribe to that channel. So apart from that, we will see you.
Real quick, David.
Yes, Aaron.
Can you hear me? Yep. Can you mention the Facebook page? A lot of people ask me about our Facebook group.
Oh, yes, the Photography Videography School. I'll stick the link in that underneath as well. So I will put that down there as well. We're up to over 8,000 followers, subscribers now, so it's doing really, really well. Very positive group. So if you want to join us on that, the link will be below this as well. I'll also put Aaron's link to his channel as well, because go and check out those videos with his A7C as well. And apart from that, everyone, we'll see you at the same time next week. So that's it. Catch you, Aaron. Thanks, we'll see you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.
I had that mirror, by the way.